Hello everyone, Joel here from My Tics and I. Welcome back. Hey, fuck off. Oh, fuck off you cunts. Today I thought we'd talk about Tourette's in more detail. But before we do that, we need to dispel a few myths. Myth number one. Ha, fuck off. Hey, dog and cat, cats and dogs. Hey, Tourette's is not a mental health disorder. It is commonly perceived as one, but it isn't. Hey, fuck off. Dozy shit. Hey! Tourette's is a neurological disorder, and you might be thinking, well, what's the difference? A mental health condition or psychiatric disorder is a mental or behavioural pattern which causes severe distress and impairment of a person's functionality in day-to-day living. A neurological disorder, hey, on the other hand, is a disease of the central nervous system. So the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves that connect them. Hey, myth number two. Hey, fuck off. It's all about swearing. Fuck. Shit. I know looking at me, it probably seems like it is, but it really isn't. Coprolalia, which is the technical term for the swearing tics, only affects around 10% of people with Tourette's. I'm one of them. That means, though, that 90% of Tourette's is nothing to do with swearing. Myth number three. People often think that people that have Tourette syndrome are mentally challenged or intellectually deficient. And this simply isn't true. Research actually shows that people with Tourette syndrome, fuck off, shit, cats and dogs, are actually of above average intelligence. Many famous people have had Tourette syndrome. Howard Hughes, the famous film producer, pilot, inventor and engineer, he had Tourette's. His life was made famous in the film The Aviator. It's also thought that Mozart, the famous composer, had Tourette syndrome. So what causes Tourette's? Well, I'm afraid this is where it gets tricky. We don't really know. We know that it's an inherited genetic condition, but unlike most genetic conditions, no single genetic mutation has been identified. We've seen lots of genetic variations and mutations in people with Tourette syndrome, but it's also possible to have those genetic mutations and not have Tourette's. The risk of having Tourette's probably develops whilst the child is still developing in the womb. Research has shown differences in the development of areas of the brain during growth. These areas are mostly associated with the control of movement. We also think that environmental factors during development play a part in determining the risk of developing Tourette's. For example, a research study involving over 6,000 pregnant mothers, which also followed up with them after their children were born, showed that inadequate weight gain during pregnancy highly increased the risk of developing Tourette's. The use of cannabis and alcohol during pregnancy has also shown to significantly increase the risk of the child developing Tourette syndrome. We also believe that there's a probable imbalance in the neurotransmitters in the brain. These are the chemical messages that carry the information from parts of the brain to other parts of the brain. Typically, these imbalances are found in the chemical dopamine, which is why most medications for the treatment of Tourette's involve suppressing the dopamine system. Right, I'm going to have a nap after all that. Right, let's have a look and learn about the different types of tics. And there are many, as I'm sure you guessed just by watching me. Let's start with the most well-known, coprolalia. This is the use of socially inappropriate or obscene words and noises. See, even coprolalia, even the swearing tic, isn't all about swearing. It's anything that is socially inappropriate. For example, I quite often make that tic. It's socially inappropriate in certain situations, so that would be coprolalic. Obviously, obscene language, hey, fuck, like that. Coprospraxia. Now, as the name suggests, this is also about obscenity and socially inappropriate behaviours. However, this is about movement and gesture, so the use of socially inappropriate or obscene movements and gestures is coprospraxia. Echolalia. This is to do with the mimicking of sounds, noises, words or phrases that we hear. Echospraxia, yep, you guessed it, this is mimicking gesture. As you know, there are many different types of tics, and they're not all the same for everyone with Tourette's. People with Tourette's can have a tic that they do once and never do again, and they can have a tic which they do throughout their life that just won't go away. It's a fluid condition. Hey, hey! Hey, cunt! Fuck off. Some days are worse than others. I've had days where I've ticked maybe 4 or 5 times. And there are some, like today, where I'm a bit more ticky than I normally would be. And there are some days where I just do not stop. Tics can be affected by environmental factors. So, happiness, sadness, anger, the weather, the people around you, things you see and things you hear. It's incredibly complex. Are there any cures for Tourette syndrome? No, I'm afraid not. There are treatments, but there's no guarantee that the treatments will work for everyone. The 2 main treatments are medication. These are usually dopamine suppressors, but for many people with Tourette's, like myself, I don't take them because I find they take away my drive to get up and go out and do things and be active. And the other type of treatment that's commonly used is behavioural therapies. Again, there's no guarantee that either of those will work. We're actually going to look at the treatments for Tourette syndrome in a future video. So how is Tourette's diagnosed? Well, usually you have to have several motor tics and at least 1 vocal tic for a period of a year or more. You go to your GP with these symptoms. Your GP then will refer you to a neurologist, and it's the neurologist who makes the diagnosis. Because no single genetic mutation has been identified as a cause of Tourette's, there's no blood test that you can do to test for Tourette's, and it can't be tested for prior to birth. MRI scans may be used to rule out other conditions. So there we have it, your guide to Tourette syndrome. I hope you found the video useful. If you'd like to learn more about Tourette's, and if you want to see in upcoming videos what it's like to live with, then please do hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and I'll see you next time.